private equity firm Shamrock Holdings bought the rights to all of Taylor Swift's master recordings, album art, and music videos, leaving Swift with no ownership of the material she created. Oh, you know Taylor Swift called him out on Twitter. So, benefits are being cut.
All right, T-Swifty fans, your mission is clear. You have to end private equity loans for small businesses and medium-sized businesses as well. I mean, there's never been a clearer time. So you must use all the power of the T-Swifties, all of it. You know, combine your forces. You know, set your sails. Do whatever is necessary. Hit to the internet's T-Swifty fans. This is truly your calling. Just want to start with Adam Ruins Everything. Apparently has a new video, a combo of Adam Ruins Everything and More Perfect Union, which I'm going to start playing while I set things up.
Have you ever wondered why so many major retail chains have filed for bankruptcy or closed locations recently? I mean, we're talking Toys R Us, Baskin Robbins, J. Crew, Hertz, 24 Hour Fitness, even Dunkin' Donuts. It's pretty much an entire mall. Well, it's not just because of the pandemic. See, there's a shadowy mafia that has been ripping off the entire US economy while making themselves rich, filthy rich. This group is responsible for bankrupting hospitals, your favorite retail chains, and even ripping off Taylor Swift. They're called private equity, and your company...
Now hold on. Before we get into this private equity stuff, I just want to say, I've said on the record, I am terrified of T-Swifty fans. So don't worry, T-Swifty fans, I'm not coming at you, okay? This is not an attack on T-Swifty. I understand many of you take T-Swifty very seriously. This is not a takedown of T-Swifty. I'm not doing the yee thing. I'm gonna just watch this, and I'm willing to learn.
Might be next. Let's take a deep dive into the private equity mafia. I'm Adam Conover, and this is the classroom from More Perfect Union. So, what does private equity mean? Well, if you want to be literal about it, it's just investing in any asset other than the public stock market. A private equity firm like Blackstone, KKR, Carlyle, or Apollo manages a private equity fund, which is a big pool of money from investors who are trusting the firm to make good choices with that money. But we want to focus on one nefarious strategy the private equity mafia used specifically. Let's take a look at the real mafia to explain. In mob media like Goodfellas and The Sopranos, the mafia...
He mentioned Hertz, yeah. So I saw that article, and it's pretty scary. I don't know if he's going to get into it, so I won't spoil it too much, but apparently if you've rented a Hertz car, you may have to look into it, because could be the corporation is coming after you. It's some fucked up shit.
Preys on profitable small businesses, puts them into debt by making them pay money to keep the place running, and then leverages that debt to do whatever they want with the place. They run up huge tabs, take store merchandise on credit, eat all the maraschino cherries, the works. Then, when the owners can't pay them anymore, they just burn the joint down for the insurance money. Now in the mafia world, this is called a bust out, and it's obviously criminal. But in private equity, it's called a leveraged buyout.
Leveraged buyout.
Leveraged buyout.
Leveraged buyout.
A classic LBO.
And it's completely legal. You can't just give a crime a businessy name and call it legal. I can't legally commit murder if I call it a lifespan termination agreement. No, sir, I'm not stabbing you. If this is just a knife-to-chest merger.
The J.P. Morgans, they were crooks and killers too, but that was the business, right? The American way.
Leverage in a business context just means borrowed money, debt used to buy an asset. So in a leveraged buyout, a private equity firm is buying a company using a giant loan, much like how you might take out a mortgage or student loan. But unlike those loans where you, the buyer, are responsible for paying it and all the interest back, in a leveraged buyout, the company being purchased is responsible for the loan, not the private equity firm. These companies get saddled with up to 90% of their value in debt, while the private equity firm stands to lose nothing but the 10% they put in. Now, private equity firms like to claim that they're coming in and saving small businesses.
We really wake up every day trying to build businesses. That is the goal of private equity.
But in reality, they're mostly targeting businesses that are already doing fine. And this isn't some fringe strategy. It's happening all the time. In just 2021 alone, there were around 8,500 leveraged buyouts in the United States, valued at $1.2 trillion. Now, you might ask, pumping thousands of companies full of debt, how is this a money-making strategy? Well, to private equity billionaires, the companies they buy are just theoretical assets, numbers in a ledger, potential profit sources. But, in reality, they're real organizations with thousands of employees, the people who actually do the work and are relying on that income. Private equity controls a ridiculous amount of the workforce now, and it is growing from fewer than 9 million workers in 2018 to almost 12 million in 2020. So, let's look at how leveraged buyouts affect the workers at the companies acquired by a private equity firm. Their new bosses, the PE firm, are concerned with paying off the debt and increasing profits and little else. So, what do? Well, first, layoffs. When private equity takes over a large company, 13% of jobs on average are cut. From 2009 to 2019, private
That is massive. 13%. Yeah, I totally agree. It's some hatchet man schemes. Like, that is basically what they're doing here. You enter in as a small-time investor, I guess. Well, small-time in relativity to how much money is being spent here. But at which point you try to, you know, synergize things. We want to streamline this operation. We want to make things run a little bit smoother. So, of course, it would probably make more sense if we just cut out redundancies. I mean, in Britain, that's actually the term for it. It's like, oh, I was made redundant. Yes, you were made redundant, all right.
equity killed 1.3 million retail jobs, and that's just one industry. And they can also just make your job worse even if they don't lay you off. Employees at private equity-owned companies pay more out of pocket for health insurance, get less employer retirement contribution, and get fewer raises, all in the name of cutting costs to pay back debt. Now, More Perfect Union covered this, showing what happened to working conditions at the Cheesecake Factory when it was snapped up by Rourke Capital, a firm, this is true, named after a character in an Ayn Rand novel. Interesting fact, Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, where the name Rourke comes from, is 753 pages long, and that is 80 pages shorter than a Cheesecake Factory menu. And even with all these cuts to the basic rights of workers, private equity still manages to run companies into the ground. About 20% of public companies taken private by private equity go bankrupt in their first 10 years, compared to just 2% otherwise. Like in the case of a company that was very dear to me and any kid who grew up in the 90s, Toys R Us. The company was bought in 2005 by a coalition of private equity and real estate firms, and the toy chain was immediately burdened with over $3 billion in debt. By 2007, just 2 years of private equity ownership, Toys R Us was spending
No, this isn't the brand new Adam Ruins Everything. Adam Ruins Everything, or Adam Conover, has teamed up with More Perfect Union to make this new special called Private Equity Rob, Taylor Swift, and Duncan, and you're next. And don't worry, it's not anti-T-Swifty. I can't stress that enough. Please, don't come after me, T-Swifty fans.
97% of their profits on paying back interest, and not even the full loan. That prevented them from being able to innovate. You know, that thing that capitalists are supposed to love doing. So, Toys R Us missed out on that whole internet thing. You know, kind of a big deal. But was that managerial failure, or because they couldn't afford to do it, thanks to all those burdensome loans? And you know what? It's not just Toys R Us. 2/3 of companies that filed for bankruptcy in 2016 and 2017 were private equity owned. If a company you worked for went bankrupt, well...
Whoa. Did you hear that? 2/3. 2/3. That's pretty big. And I know it probably, like, you know, when a private equity firm is coming along saying that they're going to invest a whole bunch of money into your corporation or the head of your corporation or the umbrella company of your corporation, it may sound like good news because it's like, well, there's going to be more funding, but they are going to change things ever so slightly. There might be some early redundancies and there may be some short-term bankruptcies as a result.
There's a good chance it was private equity's fault. Okay, so let's recap where we've been so far. Private equity is destroying jobs and making workers' lives worse. But cost cutting also affects consumers in some pretty serious ways. Private equity investments in nursing homes went up $95 billion from 2000 to 2018, and now 10% of all U.S. nursing homes are owned by private equity. These firms cut staffing and nurse hours so the residents get less basic and emergency care. Residents in private equity-owned nursing homes are 50% more likely to be on antipsychotic medication and 10% more likely to die. Private equity investments in general health care more than tripled since 2015. Now 25% of hospitals are owned by private equity. The Journal of the American Medical Association found that private equity-owned hospitals had a $407 increase in charges per inpatient day. And yeah, that's a cost that's being passed on to the patients like you and me. And if human suffering isn't enough to get you mad, well, how about this? After BC Partners acquired PetSmart in 2015, dog deaths at PetSmart groomings doubled. Yeah, dead puppies don't do it for you. Well, how about hugely popular singer-songwriters? In 2020...
No. I don't even need the T-Swifty crowd. I'm on board. This is terrible. This is absolutely atrocious. You had me well before the dog deaths. Now that you've gotten to the puppy murders, god damn. No. All right, Adam, I'm convinced. How do we stop this? Can we get to the how do we stop this part?
Private equity firm Shamrock Holdings bought the rights to all of Taylor Swift's master recordings, album art, and music videos, leaving Swift with no ownership of the material she created. Oh, you know Taylor Swift called him out on Twitter. So, benefits are being cut.
All right, T-Swifty fans, your mission is clear. You have to end private equity loans for small businesses and medium-sized businesses as well. I mean, there's never been a clearer time. So you must use all the power of the T-Swifties, all of it, you know, combine your forces, you know, set your sails, do whatever is necessary. Hit to the internet's T-Swifty fans. This is truly your calling.
Jobs are being destroyed. The quality of products and services is going down and companies are folding. And it's all in the name of making good returns for investors, right? Well, That's important. The actual investors in these funds aren't billionaires. They're people who actually matter. Private equity investors are largely retirement and pension funds. You know, those big pools of money that public and union workers like teachers and nurses contribute to throughout their careers, hoping to have a retirement income. So for all the human and puppy suffering the private equity model causes, is it at least making those folks some money for retirement? Well, let's listen to Jeffrey Hook, a finance professor at the Johns Hopkins Carey School of Business, who worked for the finance industry for decades.
The marketing pitch is that these private equity investors are geniuses and are beating the public markets by leaps and bounds. When you dig a little deeper, when you lift up the rocks, you find out that these kinds of claims are untrue. They're flat with the public markets, or in some cases underperform.
Huh. So if the money isn't going back to the investors, where is it going? Perhaps it has something to do with why some call this industry the billionaire factory. In 2005, there were just 3 private equity multi-billionaires, but by 2020, there were 22 of them, and they are now worth a combined $153 billion, money that was directly transferred
Almost
from the
a Bezos.
retirement savings of teachers and nurses. So, let's talk about how private equity is not only destroying businesses, but is transferring wealth from the retirements of the people who need it to a small group of private equity executives via exorbitant fees.
The amount of money put into private equity is gigantic, probably a couple of $1 trillion easy. And estimates vary, but I would say probably a little more than half would be in public plans or municipal plans.
Hook says that private equity firms aren't providing the returns they promise. And Hook isn't alone. Oxford researcher Ludovic Philippou found that once you factor in the massive fees private equity funds charge their investors, the funds perform no better than simply investing in the stock market. Research by the American Federation of Teachers, run by President Randy Weingarten, found that the average private equity fund used to perform similar to the public stock market, but since the mid-2000s has actually underperformed the public market. Even Warren Buffett, the ultimate Wall Street insider himself, agrees.
We have seen a number of proposals from private equity funds where the returns are really not calculated in a manner that, they're not calculated in a manner that I would regard as honest. If I were running a pension fund, I would be very careful about what was being offered to me.
And you know what? It's even worse than that. We mentioned fees a few times, but the fees really, really add up. PE firms use a fee structure called 2 and 20. They get 2% of all money invested with them, and then 20% of all profits above a certain amount.
The fee drain from these various investors is probably on the order of $30 billion a year. So they're paying $30 billion a year for investment.
How do we stop it? Well, I mean, that's obviously a much bigger question, but something you could do to start with is if you have, or you know someone who is on a teachers union, share this video with them. Get them to be aware of it. Maybe that teachers union doesn't want to put all its money into a private equity loan company anymore, because that would be a good place to start, right?
Performance that is mediocre at best. If you look at the New Jersey State Employees Fund, 14% of the portfolio has been sucked out in fees the last 5 years.
Since 2006, a total of $230 billion has been transferred from investors to private equity firms through performance.
Like, I'll say this. Obviously, if you're a teacher, your life is incredibly difficult. You are underpaid and overworked to a very high degree, and you're not given anywhere near the amount of respect you should be getting for the job that you do. So that's just like the reality of how we treat teachers in, North America and a lot of other countries. So if that teachers union doesn't want to have to spend time worrying about how to invest their money and they want someone to handle it, I completely understand that as well. The problem being is if the people that are handling their money are either doing a whole bunch of other really bad stuff around the world, stuff they probably wouldn't approve of, and B, aren't getting them the returns that the teachers union probably deserves, then it's a loss, right? It's both doing stuff that they may find to be amoral, and it's also not getting them the returns on the investment that they probably want in order to pay out teachers' retirement funds or any other organization.
Now, pension funds could instead simply not pay those fees, invest in the stock market normally, and make the same returns. That'd be more money for retirees. The firms also make money with monitoring fees.
The fee that's kind of hidden is called a monitoring fee, and that is the fee for giving them advice and sitting on the board of directors.
That's right. They buy the company, forcibly hire themselves as consultants and directors, and then pay themselves for it. It's all part of their win-win for themselves system, and they collect a little bit of money every step of the way. Now, the winners here are obvious. Like a mob-run casino or any casino, the house always wins.
All that money is rolling in.
It's a terrific deal for the private equity managers. They put up very little money They get a huge amount of fixed fees. In the process, we've created a new plutocracy.
So, how do teachers feel about the fact that billions of dollars of their retirement savings are being used to fund private equity strategies? This is Randy Weingarten. She's the president of America's second largest teachers union, the American Federation of Teachers.
I don't begrudge anybody from making money. I don't begrudge anyone from having their American dream, but give me a break. It's the workers of the country that have built this country. It's the teachers who have built this country. It's the nurses and the healthcare workers who have saved people from COVID. Why would they be undermined, their conditions be undermined? Why would their pensions be stolen? And they do it with no transparency, and they do it in ways where they overpromise and underdeliver.
This whole thing just seems completely predatory, backwards, unjust, and frankly, not conducive to a productive and equal economy. So how are they getting away with any of this? I mean, last time I stole from a retiree, I had to give all those Werther's originals back. Well, it's because they're allowed to hide essential information like returns. See, this entire industry exists in the shadows, like the mafia. They report their own returns to investors, and they never have to be completely open about how much they're making. Those massive fees we told you about, not only are they allowed to hide them, but in 38 states, it's illegal to reveal them. That's because, again, like the mafia, they've got guys on the inside everywhere.
Over the years, the industry has developed, with the help of many enablers, what I call a protective ecosystem. The private equity industry is essentially operating unfettered by federal government regulation. I mean, you have thousands of private equity funds. You might have a couple of dozen people out of thousands of SEC employees that cover the private equity industry. The SEC's offered no explanation for why it lets this gigantic industry run around essentially unsupervised.
Part of the problem is that many government officials have come from private equity, and many of them go to private equity when they leave government.
Senator, we're both part of the same hypocrisy.
Towards the end of President Trump's reign, his Department of Labor announced a rule change that would allow private equity to get into 401ks. You know, that thing your retirement savings is likely invested in. One expert estimated that that would help transfer almost $14 billion in wealth from individual retirement investors to private equity firm managers. Now, the Biden campaign denounced this at the time, but in 2021, with Biden as president, his administration ended up reinforcing the action with a supplemental letter. And Biden's presidential campaign received nearly $4 million in donations from private equity executives. But even if you don't work for a firm sucked up by private equity, even if your pension isn't in it, even if you never go to a private equity-owned hospital, this is still your problem. So, what can we do to fix it? Well, transparency for—
All right, hold on. This is the part that's probably the most important, so I'm not going to do it in 125. This one gets a normal treatment, so if all of a sudden you feel like the whole thing has gone like, it's because we were watching it on 125. We're going to watch it normal. Everyone's been asking that big question, what's to be done? And I think what's to be done, or how can you help, is a really good addendum to add to the end of your videos. Because hey, guess what, lefties? When we make YouTube videos, the whole things are usually because we're outraged by certain something and we want to expose it and let everyone else know. And that's a good thing, a very, very good thing. But very rarely at the very end of it do we have anything constructive, you know? There's not the what ought we do. It's usually just, here is a really shitty problem you should know about. And then you see that shitty problem, and then you kind of, if you're left with nothing else, you might feel a little hopeless at the end of it. It's like, hey, guess what? Climate change is real and it's happening. It's like, oh God, that's terrible. Yeah, I know, it's pretty terrible. Anyways, this is brought to you by Curiosity Stream. And then, I get it. You gotta get that Curiosity Stream money, and I totally think it's completely fine. Everyone who gets sponsorships, I have no problem with that. But after the Curiosity Stream thing, is there going to be a but? Is there going to be a ... And this is how we help out.
So, what can we do to fix it? Well,
oh God, it's so slow. Maybe we'll slow down even more.
transparency for—
No, that's too slow. All right, let's go back to normal.
Enter the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, the federal agency charged with stopping bad actors from manipulating the markets. The SEC, led by Biden appointee Gary Gensler.
Private equity funds, you might think they don't matter to everyday investors and companies. Or do they?
Oh my God.
Has proposed changing their rules so that—
Well, hey, I trust that guy. Come on, there's a snazzy intro. It's got that elevator music in there. Did they choose that? Was it like, hey, by the way, what are we looking for our intro music? I don't know. What do I hear when I'm in the elevator? You know, when you're just riding up the elevator, that's the kind of thing that, like, I mean, most elevators I've been in my entire life don't actually have music. That seems to be a movie thing, by the way. I should add that. Have you ever been in an elevator that has elevator music? I've been in an elevator that had music, but it wasn't elevator music. So I'm just like, I think that's got to be, it's a comedy thing, isn't it? It's one of those comedy timing things. It's like the old Naked Gun movies where it's just like, oh yeah, they're riding in the elevator and then you hear doo, 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 doo.
Private equity firms.
Yes, I have. I have. You all have? Yes, but not in a while. Oh my. I guess we just have different elevators. See, here in the made-up land of Canada, the elevators are all filled with commercials now. Like the elevators usually have like a screen in front, and it's just commercials. And guess what's the only thing that's really ever advertised on them? Real estate. It's not even good commercials, the commercials that might, like, you know, tide you over for the 30 seconds to a minute that you got to ride up the elevator. You're just sitting there and it's like, oh yeah, there's a couple super rich people from selling real estate. Oh yeah, there's a couple other super rich people from selling, oh, that person's also incredibly wealthy from selling real estate. And all real estate salesmen.
You know, tell the truth about the returns of their funds and disclose transparent information about all the fees that they charge. Now, obviously, the lobbying groups representing private equity firms are up.
Leah Squirrel, thank you for the tier 1. Appreciate it. And 1 year apparently. Hey, probably a great year spent. I'll say that much. Let me quickly take a look at this. Ken Klippenstein says, not going to make any friends saying this, but Russia invading a sovereign country is bad. I agree, Ken. I completely agree. I agree with this statement. But then Amy Therese says, Canada's on the payroll of Pierre Omidyar, who funded a coup when there's a conjunction with the regime change funds like NED and the neocons in Obama State Department, e.g. Victoria Nuland. Omidyar also funds Bill Kristol's democracy promotion NGO and his activities in the Bulwark. Wow. I'm going to have to talk to Ken about all this, Amy. It seems like you've done some incredible detective work, and I, for one, am not completely scared by your consistent, super far-right takes on the internet lately.
In arms about the idea that they might have to disclose even some of the basic information to their investors. But meanwhile, in Congress, the federal Stop Wall Street Looting Act, introduced in 2021, would limit the amount of debt used in buyouts, increase transparency, and close tax loopholes. If we don't make those changes, the private equity mafia is going to keep getting away with their schemes to line their pockets with your money, your teacher's money, your nurse's money, all while killing your puppy and your grandma and making you wait an extra 40 minutes for an almond-crusted salmon salad from the Cheesecake Factory. Oh, it's infuriating, right?
Why is it that private equity has more of a priority than the people who work for a living who make America run? Yeah, I'm really angry by that. This is not fair to workers. The people who do the work should have the kind of livelihood that they can have their American dream.
Completely agree. Well said. Well said. Let's end corporate oligarchies. Let's end empires globally, and the American empire and the Russian empire. No more empires, and let's support American workers and the American people as well. Support workers worldwide in every single country. We are united by that, if nothing else. Good, really good video, by the way. If you don't already know, More Perfect Union puts out amazing content on a regular basis. I know that the Gravel Institute was going to try and be like a juxtaposition for the PragerU videos that came out, and there are some very good Gravel Video Institute videos. There's also some kind of, this one is a little bit, oof. But anyways, More Perfect Union, I would say, is pumping out incredible S-tier content on a very, very regular basis. I would definitely recommend go supporting them, giving them the views, the subs, the thumbs ups, the all those things, the things, all those things. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multi Mondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Cern 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.